There's no end to the copious amounts of bull effery in the ocean, but there's still some animals people let slide, especially if they've been in a movie. One of these fish can do you dirty, and this time the clown's not it.
Being Dory.
If you don't take that back, I'm gonna punch your lights out.
How's it going, folks? Jack here with another reactions, and today we'll be checking out some more from Casual Geographic, this time on cute animals, but that get progressively worse for your health. I sometimes feel as cute animals are like the bane of our existence. Like, you can find whatever animal that you like that is super cute, you approach it and then it slaps you. And like, the slap is either powerful enough to twist you into a crippling state and or well, it is poisonous, like you never know. But I guess that's what we're going to learn today. But before we do, please do go and subscribe to Casual Geographic, of course, and I usually don't recommend this. Please follow his TikToks, they're pretty damn good and very informative. That being said though, let us jump into the video. Oh, we are kickstarting it with this guy.
I think a common theme on this channel is cute animals being Satan serving, humanity haunting pretty privileged merchants. And that's what this video is about, and the further we go, the higher your chances of being turned full-time horizontal. Before I do, I'm gonna just say this. When I call something a homicidal menace, that's just me using hyperbole to season a sentence. I'm not actually trying to get y'all to go out and drop kick an otter or something. Ultimately,
What do you mean? Instruction unclear, like the next day we'll be receiving a report from Greenpeace saying that, yeah, well, apparently the cases in animal brutality have been increasing at an incredible rate, and this is especially due to about 500,000 cases of drop kicking, yeah, I'm not joking, being reported in the last couple of days.
ultimately, these animals are just trying to survive and are doing what comes naturally, so you can't really judge them by human moral standards, even though that's literally what I'm about to do. And starting off, this is not your average mouse. First of all, it's a straight up carnivore. In their defense, that's not exactly crazy. Squirrels have been known to raid nests and eat the baby birds inside. But no other rodent is more of a meat eater than the grasshopper mouse. And its grocery list can include anything from insects, worms, and spiders, to mantises, scorpions, and desert centipedes.
Look, anything that eats a scorpion is a menace. Like, I don't know where this one is hailing from. It's either like Australia, the US, or Mexico. Those are like the immediate places, because the environment doesn't exactly look like either a Saharan area or not even sub-Saharan. We don't have scorpions down there.
AKA the same cursed crawly that nearly unsubscribed Coyote Peterson from existence. Grasshopper mice will even murk and eat snakes. Basically, you remember that episode where Jerry took PEDs and nearly put Tom in a tombstone? That's the grasshopper mouse times 1,000. This mighty mouse even developed a resistance to the crippling venom of ops like the Arizona bark scorpion. Not only can they tank hits that would flatline animals 100 times their size, this rogue rodent shuts down the pathways the toxin takes to cause pain. Meaning, this mouse essentially evolved to be impervious to the pain caused by venom. It can feel pain, it's just not gonna come from a scorpion. That's not even the only thing about them. These mice stalk and hunt their prey exactly like cats. This homicidal hamster will even howl after catching a body to mark their territory. Take a listen.
Oh, that's the cutest battle cry that I've ever heard.
So imagine being a scorpion, right? Millions of years of evolution. Your ancestors were apex predators, and you have biological warfare on your side. All that for a pint-sized weremouse to be your downfall. Not even other mice are safe. Grasshopper mice regularly eat other rodents, and cannibalism is not off the table. In fact, there was a story of a scientist keeping a grasshopper mouse and making the mistake of leaving it alone with a lab rat 5 times its size. In the few minutes he walked away and returned, there was one less mouse and the #1 suspect feeding on the carcass.
Holy shit, the grasshopper mouse is just looking at the other rodent being like, it's time to dominate.
Proof that even the most innocent looking platter can serve death. Especially since the predator with the highest body count is not what you'd expect. No other mammal catches more bodies than the Etruscan shrew. They're one of the smallest mammals alive, and they weigh less than 2 Skittles. The shrew is so small that the only way they can survive is by killing more prey than any other animal. Basically, if this candy-sized carnivore doesn't eat twice its weight in food every day to fuel its metabolism, they'll essentially freeze to a flatline.
How does this even come to happen? Let me guess, this one is poisonous too.
So the Etruscan shrew has to end a life every 2 hours or so, and they hunt by biting their prey through the head to disable it and then tearing it apart before another starving shrew can get to it. Just for reference, if I had to eat twice my weight in food every day, I'd be scarfing about 680 Big Macs every 24 hours. And even then, at least I don't have to hunt the burger. By the time I get to the drive-thru, the job's already done. But the shrew does have a weapon, and it's being one of the very few mammals on Earth to weaponize venom. According to studies, some shrews are toxic enough to delete 200 mice, and while they're too small to turn a human to a hashtag, it's still capable of causing pain and allergic reactions. Not only that, but some shrews are able to catch a calorie come up underwater, since some are able to smell out prey even while being completely submerged.
Yo, hold on. How does this thing outclass animals, mammals that have been acclimated to the state of being underwater, like whales and stuff? Because those they've lost the sense of smell. It was like, oh no, I'm just taking a dive, it doesn't matter. I will kill.
Yeah, they're a whole mint-sized menace, but too small to be a legit threat to us. That's not going to be true for some of the animals coming. And up next, this bird probably looks no different from something you expect in a garden.
The finches, more specifically the Galapagos finches. Well, at least one of the 4. I think this one's the hardbeak, or whatever it's called. I can't remember exactly the name. There are 4 of them. I was thinking about, since he made the Tom and Jerry reference, that are the woodpecker, the woodpecker finch, the vegetarian one, and of course the vampire finch that eats boobies. That's an old joke.
Except it's only found in the islands of the Galapagos, and to survive, they've come up with some nasty tricks. They've been nicknamed Darwin finches since they actually helped prove Charles Darwin's theory of evolution.
To be fair though, Darwin made an error to call them finches, because they aren't exactly finches, because they're more related to tanagers than finches. But I mean, to be totally fair, if I was a dude just in the 1800s, regardless of how much I would have studied, if I didn't have the internet to learn and or books that have these things documented, I wouldn't have been able to tell them apart. Even less when it comes to the Corvidae families, the ravens. What the fuck is up with those?
Long story short, different finches ate different foods and so developed different size and shaped beaks. One finch evolved to finesse an easy meal by pecking at the skin of bigger birds and drinking the blood that spills out.
Yep.
Are birds even f***ing real? And scientists believe up to 10% of this flying leech's diet is seabird blood, and their favorite victim is a bird called the booby. Don't laugh, it's not funny.
Blue boobies are even funnier to look at. They don't look real.
It's not funny. Popular opinion says that it started with the finches picking parasites off the birds, but after realizing they could live off the marinara that would often leak out, the vampire finches started turning the birds into booby blood banks. They literally became everything they sought to destroy. They're skilled enough to know how much damage to do to get a ragu reward without doing too much and losing a future victim. Yeah, these birds drink nothing but blood, which they kinda have to since freshwater in the Galapagos is in less supply than lawyers in heaven. But it also means that even though they can fly, Arup would be completely useless to them. But not to you, because Arup's flavor pods uses scent flavors to convince your brain you're drinking whatever pod you chose.
Hey.
Just fill up the bottle, pull the pod to activate, and drink your flavor. And that can be anything from blueberry to peach to cherry to cucumber. Or dirty pennies, you know, if you happen to be this finch.
Oh, that's great. Oh my god, that might be a good thing to do. Like, as somebody who trains a lot, like sometimes water can feel a little bit stale since I have to drink a shit ton every day. And especially if you want to stay like on a diet or want to achieve a certain goal. If you don't like to rely on things like artificial sweeteners or like sweetened waters that is just filled with aspartame, perhaps this is the better choice.
Which is great, because although I've never had a problem getting enough water, I personally have been trying to cut down on all the juices and sodas and stuff, and Arup's a great way of weaning yourself off without going full cold turkey. I've gotten a lot better at it now, but when I was just starting, Arup was the perfect failsafe. And if you think it would be for you, make sure you check out Arup and their assortment of flavor pods using the link in the description. Use the code CASGEO15 for 15% off. And like I always say, stay hydrated, my friends. It's just too bad finches don't drink water, otherwise Arup would save more boobies and free mammograms. Not only do they grief bosom birds, but finches will often roll eggs out of nests and crash them in the rocks just for some easy protein. They're not even the only birds on that kind of timing. The New Zealand keel will use that Swiss Army knife of a nose to cut into sheep and eat the fat right off their backs. And sometimes they freak the sheep out so much they yeet themselves off a cliff trying to get away. But at least the Kia and the vampire finch are only harmful to your mental. From here on out, that is the last time that statement will be true. Because this live-action plush toy is also on the short list of venomous
Wait. That's not... Venomous lemur?
mammals. The slow loris is a Southeast Asian primate armed with toxins that can do very real damage to a human. They have a gland on their arm that produces a chemical that becomes highly toxic when mixed with saliva. So when this
Okay.
imitation lemur sees you and puts its hands up, it's not a sign of surrender. It's a promise to ascend you. We talk.
Oh, he's so good. He's so good with his analogies. God damn it. Oh, I heard once a girlfriend of mine made a very embarrassing. Well, it was an insult to her now ex because he was being very toxic in the relationship. She called him a grande loris because he was clearly a bit heavy on the heavy side. And now the joke just rings so much better.
Talking straight soul eviction. In 2012, a biologist was bitten by a slow loris, and this was him after 1 hour, and this was Buddy after an hour and a half. Since the toxins contain chemicals similar to cat allergens, this venom monkey can trigger anaphylactic shock in people, making it the first animal here that can perform landscape work on your family tree. We used to think this malicious muppet used venom against predators, but it turns out it's for friendly fire. They usually use it in fades with other lorises, and the flesh-melting toxins can cause necrosis, meaning the loser loris can lose an eye, a toe, their scalp, and even part of their face. It's so bad that one of the most common causes of loris life retirements is getting bit by a rival. An 8-year study done on about 80 slow lorises found that over 20% of them were seriously maimed in conflicts, with some missing eyes, ears, fingers, toes, and more. It's nasty work, and it puts the slow loris on the very short list of animals that use venom against their own kind.
Well, that explains the eyes. They are constantly in shock. Like, why would you do this to me? I'm one of ya.
And it's no coincidence that one of the others is next. 2 things about platypuses the public should know.
1. They are beavers that go quack.
1 is at about 6 pounds and less than 2 feet long. They're way smaller than you think. And 2 is that they're violently venomous. Males have an ankle spur that they use in fights, and like the loris, the consequences of losing are incredibly painful. In 1991, Australian veteran Keith Payne was struck by a platypus, and in his own words, the immediate pain was far worse than getting struck by shrapnel. And it only got worse. The excruciating pain didn't go away after a month, even after he was shot up with morphine. And just how much pain are we talking? Well, according to him, just the weight of a warm towel on the sting caused incapacitating agony. Even 15 years after, he claimed to still be in discomfort, and this guy wasn't sweet or nothing.
Are you telling me that it's an animal that causes you to have phantom pains for the rest of your life? Jesus.
He actually earned the highest honor of the British Armed Forces for his performance in the Vietnam War. Same guy apparently got folded by a beaver otter cosplaying as a duck. And it's because platypus venom manipulates nerve cells to trigger pain in a way that can have you down horrendous for weeks, and not even enough morphine to roofie a rhino can bail you out.
Holy shit. Yo, this is why Australia is on a different level. It's like most of the world is just the entry lobby. Australia has the boss's final stage.
That's how you know Perry had love for the doof. He could have had a pharmacist every flavor of up if he wanted to. That's why if you see 2 male platypi fighting, you'll often see the loser spend days rolling around and scratching. That's a platypus in crippling agony. And you can expect the same symptoms if you F around and find out with the next animal. Even though it's barely an inch long. Most people know why playing with a Portuguese man-of-war is bad for your health.
Oh.
You heard me say most. The man-of-war is notorious for excruciatingly painful stings that they inflict on thousands a year. Not only can it cause nasty welts like this, in worst case scenarios, it can trigger severe allergic reactions that can block your airways and suffocate you. Most people know not to touch them, but a lot of those same people would do this. This is Glaucus atlanticus, and more specifically, it's a tiny sea slug nudibranch. And what these boneless snails do is steal poison from other animals like anemones by eating them and storing the toxin in those weird fingertips growing out of their back.
I think 2 summers ago, we bought some copper tape because you can use copper to put in front of your doors to make sure that such creatures like snail are repelled. Like the combination of the slug and or snail's slime and the copper is going to create like an electric shock that will repel them. And well, that's not the point. But during that, I came across a little bit of info on certain snails, and they're like zombie snails that are like controlled by a certain bacteria, or was it a worm that actually goes to the brain and starts controlling the mind. I'm saying that because of the antennae there, and the way that they just go and infect the bird and then continues the cycle of infection. It is spooky, and whoa, snails are now, they were already disgusting in my opinion, but now dangerous on like a list of like Black Air Force creatures that will kill you.
It's cultural appropriation, but with poison, and the Glaucus does it to the man of war. Which is why even though a 2-inch Glaucus is an overachiever, holding one and getting stung can lead to nausea, vomiting, allergic reactions, and you guessed it, pain. In fact, many think because the poison they steal is so concentrated, their sting is actually more powerful than the jellyfish understudy they take it from. Moral of the story, this is what it looks like to put a dent in your family's bloodline. Pro tip, if an animal's that small and goes out of its way to be seen, touching it's a great way to see your ancestors. I couldn't find a case of someone being seriously hurt by this tiny assault slug, so it's another example of an animal being too small to truly punish ignorance as often as they could. Completely different from the animal up next, because real talk, if you haven't seen them in person, you would not believe how big they actually get. We all know Steve Irwin, may God rest his
Look, I love Steve, but goddamn.
soul, and his son and shadow clone, Robert Irwin. Just like his father, Robert got the same animal lover's gene, but there is one animal he's terrified of, and you probably never guess it. According to him, the animal that scares him the most and has the most smoke for him.
Wombat.
Crazy, right? That's a wombat, and yeah, they really do get that big. And in the words of the spawn of khaki animal Jesus, crocodiles are apparently easier to work with than wombats, since wombats are bloodthirsty psychopaths. And while he probably was exaggerating a little, wombats still ain't the ones to play with. At 25 miles per hour, wombats are fast enough to catch a ticket in a school zone and more than fast enough to catch you off guard. They have a tough, cartilage-reinforced butt that they use to crush the skulls of their enemies against their burrows. Yeah, getting your life subscription terminated through twerking is a possibility if you're an op to a wombat.
I'm sorry. That should not have been that funny. He's killing me with these lines. Ah, dude. Twerk to death.
More importantly, they have jaws more than capable of tearing chunks out of your ankles in cats, which is what these furry bowling balls usually go for. Victim Carrie Evans was hospitalized with over 20 bites and lacerations after she was mauled by the evil bulking twin of the quokka. And in 2020, a family nearly got squad wiped by a wombat after the one they were raising for a TV show turned on them, mauling his owner and handing out work to any kin that tried stepping in without prejudice. Buddy almost folded 4 generations of people, and it took a whole axe to get him to act right. And that's not even mentioning the damage an angry fur meatball can do to your car. Moral of the story, if anyone in this man's bloodline don't rock with him, neither do I. The problem is, 99% of the population rocks with pandas and forgets it's still a bear that was made after the printer ran out of color. It's still a bear, and you can have a panda bear, a yogi bear, or nose candy bear. If it ends in a B-E-A-R, you'll be last seen in an E-R.
Nice.
Even get that far. So fun fact, gorillas have a stronger bite force than grizzly bears and can crack a coconut, and that's because they spend so much of their time crushing vegetation. As bamboo merchants that commit 16 hours a day to binging it, giant pandas might have the most underrated bite in the entire animal kingdom. A study was done comparing the bite force of carnivores relative to their body size using a value known as the bite force quotient. African lions were given a bite force quotient of 124. The
tigers,
believed to be pound for pound the strongest cat, earned a 137. And while being smaller than both, African
pelted dog
flexed a bone-crushing 142. And where did giant pandas fall? With a BFQ of 151, giant pandas scored a bronze medal on the bite force.
I am always fearful whenever I see one of those caretakers that have to either help them with whatever, get out of a weird situation. Like, yeah, they might seem cuddly, but they can literally kill you, and they will do that while playing with you, thinking that, oh, it's funny. Funny Hume coming into my cage. Let me nibble you just a little bit and tear off your flesh.
Only behind the least weasel and an assault and battery happy Looney Tune. That's strong enough to rip flesh, tear tendons, and shatter bone. The thing is, pandas have all the tools of a predator, but with gerbil software. But even though this giant cow rabbit doesn't know how to kill, they can be persuaded into trying, and it's usually in zoos. In 2006, a wasted tourist had a chunk of his calf ripped off by a pissed off panda after he tried to pet it. In 2009, a tourist fell into an enclosure and also paid a calf tax. Later the same year, another tourist managed to fall into an enclosure and the barcode bear nearly turned him into a serial number on a police report, ripping off parts of his foot and elbow. And in 2015, Guan Huanxi sued the government and won for over $80,000. The reason was because officials had chased a giant panda onto his land and a generationally heated bear crushed one's leg like a celery stick. And my personal favorite story, a man tried wrestling a biracial black Air Force to impress a woman and appropriately got partially handled.
Biracial black Air Force impression. You know what? The day I die, he could, like, as a side hustle, do some slam poetry and or write obituaries. Whichever it is, I will invest in it.
He wasn't hurt, but the bear bodied him and even shredded his pants in the process, which was the closest he'd get to foreplay that entire day. It's no secret there's no end to the copious amounts of bull effery in the ocean, but there's still some animals people let slide, especially if they've been in a movie. One of these fish can do you dirty, and this time the clown's not it.
Dory.
If you don't take that back, I'm gonna punch your lights out.
Here's the thing. Have you ever been in those situations where you have like a conversation with your friends about morals and ethics, and one pulls the whole, oh, what Scar did with the lion tribe was actually justifiable. And then you go, oh, okay, so that's how we're gonna play. How about Dory? Yes, Dory, listen, forget about the fact that she's the, oh, also funny fish with the lapse in memories. The fact simply that she's played by Ellen DeGeneres. Okay, this is actually kind of mean, but like very much like her voice actress. She may perhaps have some good intention and she's pretty damn funny when she wants to be. There's something sour behind her, something almost poisonous.
The regal blue tang is actually venomous, with caudal spines sharp enough to slice open skin, and when threatened, they'll whip their bodies from side to side. It's like a junkie waving a broken bottle at you, and the deep lacerations it can cause are almost guaranteed to get infected. And thanks to a certain Pixar movie, there's at least one kid out there that got a bacterial infection just because Ellen DeGeneres played a fish well. Not only that, but the blue tang is toxic to humans and can cause ciguatera poisoning to the people that eat it. An even worse mistake when people try it with the next animal, because the cute derp guppy is one of the most poisonous things alive. The tetrodotoxin in one pufferfish can bury 30 people. It's about 1,200 times more toxic than cyanide, and there's no actual antidote. All that and Mrs. Puff's X is still considered a delicacy. The fugu blowfish is a prized dish in Japan, but it's also Russian roulette, because if the chef misses by even 1/10 of an inch, it's the customer that gets cooked.
Yeah, one of my favorite methods of killing in Hitman, the reboot series, that is. Yeah, it's whew. And I still do not understand how some people are doing it by themselves. Like, you need to have like an entry exam, or at least to pass an exam to be able to do this. Yet still some people are going at home being like, I bought a sushi book, I can do it myself. And then end up unsubscribing from live.
Here's what would happen if you got poisoned. In about 10 minutes, your mouth would go numb and you would start to feel dizzy and unreasonably tired. You'd get an overwhelming headache to go with nausea, and it'd slowly get harder and harder to breathe. Eventually, you'd get so exhausted you'd fall asleep and likely never wake up. And until then, you would have been conscious for everything. It's just that you'd be paralyzed and unable to talk or move. The only thing people could do to save you is pump your stomach, put you on life support, and God on speed dial. It's said that up to 100 people get flatlined by fugu a year, and most of that are people that try it at home. Which means by the time they realize they messed up, they can't run, call, or even scream for help. All they can do is struggle to get air and watch everything turn black like the end of Sopranos. But not even fish fentanyl has a higher body count than the last animal. A lot of people think snails are cute, yet snails are partially responsible for crossing 200,000 names off the census a year.
What did I say earlier? Snails are dangerous.
Schistomiasis is a parasitic disease caused by worms, with millions affected right now, and those worms are released by snails. The sickness is most common in tropical third world countries with limited access to clean fresh water. With about 700 million people living in at-risk areas, it's one of the most devastating parasitic diseases of all time, only second to malaria. And even if snails aren't the primary suspects, with them taxiing the bug, at the very least they're accomplices. Now you see why folks almost put Gary on a shirt. Mad snail disease wasn't a joke. But that's gonna do it for this video. Be sure to follow my TikTok and Instagram for more consistent content as you wait for the next video. Check out my book, 100 Animals That Can Effing End You. You might just see some of the guys from today on there. If you'd like to further support this channel, becoming a patron on Patreon earns you access to exclusive content, videos before I post them, and you can even help vote on what I cover in future videos. Other than that, make sure you drink water, hug your parents. Yes, parents, we're inclusive now. And I'll see y'all in the next one. As long as y'all don't do something like this, please don't.
If I were to... Oh, that was a pretty damn good video. If I were to just add one there, it would be caterpillars. So, and this is kind of an embarrassing story, but kind of weird. But it is also the scary one. When I was very young, we used to visit our grandparents back in the village. And they had like a big, I don't know how many hectares of just plantation that we used to help them harvest. And one summer I was crossing the river going back to their house after having been on the field. I was either playing or whatever. Something had happened that I was all alone. And you know how during the summer you have like these pine trees. Wow, why was that difficult to remember? But you have pine trees that sometimes would drop these things from them that kind of looks like not exactly moth, but like in the case of, for example, the flannel moth, like the part of it before it becomes a moth, it's not sarcophagus. Oh my god. Just words flying through my head. It's cocoon. Yeah, basically the cocoon that falls down there kind of looks like part of the pine tree, and I was like picking those up. And those can cause you to have severe irritation. So naturally, I picked that up, and turns out that not only that, I was even more allergic to those things. They cause that irritation, rashes, and I was blowing up. My god, that afternoon was the worst fucking day of my life. That's why I don't fuck with insects. And that's even worse with the likes of mosquitoes when they start flying around you singing the candy shop song and you just by reflex smack them. Yeah, it's become like a second nature for me. But guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. As always, please do make sure and go and subscribe to Casual Geographics. And of course, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And I see you guys in the next one. Have a good day.